with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, PenFed. I think I get this show because I live the closest, but this is my little real estate show where we talk about different topics every week. And this week we're going to talk a little bit about appraisals. Because when I go out to list a house for somebody, they say, well, my appraisal amount is such and such. And I always say, how do you know that? Because if you had an appraiser come out, they would charge you about $500 to tell you what your house was worth. Have you had that done? And they said, oh no, my appraisal came in the mail from the county. And I'm like, that's your tax appraisal. And it's typically lower than your appraisal for your house than what they would call market value. So there's the appraisal for your house, and then there's what happens in the multi-list service, which is the amount that your house is worth. Typically, the county is nice to you and makes your house worth a little bit less, typically about 10% less than your house is worth on the market. So I brought you one, and so we're going to look through this today. This house is a single family home. The appraised value on it is really low. It's $24,200. And then they make the tax value that you pay each year based upon that. So the taxes on this house each year are $290.28. And if you can pull this up on Sedgwick County tax roll anytime you want. You go to sedgwickcounty.org, you go to the government tab, and then you go to tax appraisals. So you can look up your address and any of your friends' addresses or your ex-spouse's addresses, whatever you'd like to look up. And it is public knowledge, and you can see not how much they paid for their house, but what it is worth. That's what you can see. Then you can see how much they pay in taxes. So this person pays about $300 a year in taxes. But there's also something on here called special assessments. And I know that you can't read this on TV, but I'm showing you where it is on the form so you can see it. It's on page 2, and it's called special assessments. And when I go to list a house and they have to fill out a special assessment form on an older home, they're always like, why do I have special assessments? It is a county solid waste user fee. And that means that the county, everybody in the county has one of these fees, and it is sent out, we move our trash to a different county, and that's what you have to pay for. This year it's $4.88. Next year it will go up to $5.88. It goes up about $1 every 2 years, and it's really just to move our trash to a different place. So the property assessment is online. You can also just call down to the county and they will help you. And if you want to ever talk to the county appraiser, if you think it's too high, you can go to the actual place, which is in the old Harry Street Mall at Harry and Oliver, Harry and Hillside. So you can go make an appointment and you can talk to them if you feel like it is too high, especially if you bought a house under value. For instance, if you bought a house that was in a fire and the house was worth $300,000, but you paid $200,000 for it because it had been in a fire, you can get that reduced down. This is what Butler County's looks like. It is a different view, but it is the same thing. And then on page 2, it gives you like a little layout of what the form of the house looks like. It shows you where the garage is, and it shows you where the living space is. But again, if you have a problem with what you feel your tax value is, you need to go to the county and talk to them about that and make an appointment. Tax values come out in December. Taxes are always due December 1st, so in the next month or so you'll be getting these. When you buy a house, on the settlement statement, if I bought a house in April, I would get a bonus of about $400 or whatever because I didn't pay the taxes from January 1st until April 1st. Somebody else owned that, but I would get a credit for that amount, and then December 1st I would owe for the whole year because I got that little bit of a bonus, that credit. And everybody calls me on December 1st and says, I've only owned the house since April, why do I owe a whole year? That is why. So when you sell a house and buy a house, you'll either get a credit or a debit for the amount of time that you owned it. The other thing that you need to know, so that's about tax appraisals. So when you actually list the house on the MLS and then you get a buyer, then the buyer typically pays for the appraiser to come out. It is a third-party company that is called, and they send out an appraiser to come value the house. The agents themselves are supposed to have no contact at all with the appraiser. In fact, there is a huge fine if I would call the appraiser and try to sway them in any way about that appraisal. Now, if there is a huge question or they've actually missed something, like they didn't put a shed in and they forgot to put the shed into the appraisal and it would make a difference on the appraisal amount, sure, I can call and say you missed the shed. But just to call and say this doesn't seem right, I needed $5,000 more, there would be a fine for me as an agent to contact that appraiser. But the buyer pays for that appraisal out of their closing costs and prepaids. That's part of that, and it's typically about $500. The bank calls the third party calls the appraisal person calls me for access to the property. They're in there for about 20 minutes. They take some quick measurements of the outside and the inside of the house. They take some quick pictures. It's usually a 2 or 3 day turnaround, and then they get it back to the bank, and that's the appraised amount. So when somebody says, I know what the value of my house is, I've had it appraised, well, is it the Sedgwick County or Butler County or Harvey County tax appraisal that you're talking about? Or have you actually paid a $500 fee and had an appraiser come out? Now, one of the things you want to make aware of is don't just call an appraiser to have them come and appraise your house if you want to put it on the market. Because each bank or credit union or wherever the buyer is getting their money from has a list of approved appraisers. And let's say you use Sam. Sam may not be the approved appraiser on wherever your buyer is getting their loan. So you've just paid $500 just to price your house, but the appraisal will not convert. There's also a deal where if the person is getting an FHA or a VA loan, they have to get a different type of appraisal, and maybe you got an appraisal that is for a conventional loan. So there's all these things we have to think about when we talk about appraisals. So when a realtor comes out to help you price your house, what they are going to do is bring MLS sheets like this. They're going to bring some active listings, some pending listings, and some sold listings, and they can only go back 6 months. Appraisers are only allowed to go back 6 months unless you have such an unusual property they just can't find anything else like it. And that happens a lot in College Hill. That happens a lot in Riverside, where there's just there could be $1 million house next down to a $600,000 house next to a $300,000 house, all in the same block. And maybe several $1 million houses haven't sold in the last 6 months, so they would have to go out a little bit further. But that's a bunch of information about appraisals, and if you ever need to know more, you can contact me at Berkshire Hathaway, 636-2323. I'm Leanna Beat. I will see you next week with a different fun topic. Next week we're going to talk about realtor safety. October is Realtor Safety Month, and that's going to be our topic for next month. Thank you.